Hello and welcome to McLean Church Online. My name is Chris Norris. I'm the online site pastor here. And man, it is a perfect fall day here in northwestern Pennsylvania. It's good to be in God's presence and it's good to be with you. If you're new to McLean Church or McLean Church Online, make sure you introduce yourself if you're watching during one of our live interactive services at 9, 10, or 11 a.m. on Sunday morning. Just say hello in the chat space. Introduce yourself. Tell me the best part about your week. Or you can always also click the connection card button on this page. It's towards the top. There's a little form there you can fill out. Just let us know more about you and how you heard about McLean Church Online. Maybe we can pray for you. Also, you can always visit our website at mcleanchurch.org to connect with us and tell us a little bit more about yourself and also learn a bit more about us at McLean Church. Well, over the past few weeks, we've been learning from the experts, and during our parenting series, we've heard from Pastor Brian, we've heard from Pastor Mike, last week we heard from Pastor Lenora, and this week we get to hear from Pastor Ben and his wife Amy. And it's been so great to hear how our pastors are parents too, and we've learned how God has guided and directed them on how to raise their children. Not perfectly, but are any of us really perfecting this craft? No. But I really appreciate each of their perspectives, each of the ways in which their faith has formed their parenting style, and most importantly, formed the lives of their children. And I can definitely speak firsthand in knowing many of their children, what a wonderful job each of them have done in raising their kids to know and love Jesus. And as a young father myself with a 6-year-old and also a newborn on the way, I am soaking up this series for sure and very grateful for the opportunity to learn from some of the trials and tribulations that our site pastors have gone through. So I'm learning a lot. I hope you are as well. This past week, I was taught during my devotional time about the broken window theory, right? And it's basically a concept where if you have a broken window and you leave it that way, it starts to have a ripple effect in other things. And they used the illustration of an actual thing that happened where in a neighborhood, an inner city neighborhood, there was a building that had lots of broken windows that they were going to deem unlivable, and they were going to tear it down. And some volunteers came together and they fixed up this building and they saved it from being demolished. And after they did that, crime in that particular part of the city decreased by up to 35%. So it goes to show you, when you fix things up, when you patch up those broken windows, that it has a ripple effect. And how does that apply to our lives as parents? Well, the premise behind the broken window theory is relevant to individual households like yours and I's as well. Homes with appropriate discipline, structure, and cleanliness feel stable and safe for our children. The research shows that kids brought up in such an environment are more likely to be in control of themselves and to exhibit positive behavior. On the other hand, when children sense their surroundings are chaotic and there's broken windows in their lives, their behavior tends to reflect this instability. And this is so true, and I mentioned this to my wife who's in education, and she agreed wholeheartedly that it really matters the way our kids are brought up, even in our own homes. When there's order and then there's cleanliness and there aren't any quote unquote broken windows in their lives, they see that, and that has a positive effect. And yeah, we can talk about the actual physical things in our homes, like keeping the home clean and keeping things livable and safe. But I think about the best way to avoid any of that is just the stability of having God's presence in our home. For our kids to see us going to church, for our kids to see us reading the Bible, for our kids to see us praying at dinner. All this stuff matters. This is one of the best ways to keep broken windows from happening in our lives. Because when those windows break, our kids see how we react and how we respond, because we know that we're followers of Jesus and that our faith really takes hold during those times. And that stability and that structure and that faith is on display for our kids. So someone with young kids, myself, really spoke to me this broken window theory and how keeping those windows in my life from breaking, and when they do, fixing them and showing my children how that matters and how that stability and the trust that I have in God and the order I keep in my home with God at the center of it, man, that makes a huge difference in how our kids are brought up, and it'll have tangible effects in their lives, their behavior, the way they treat people. At the very basis of the broken window theory is just this: teach your kids to love Jesus and love others. And that's the truth that spoke to me this week as a parent, and I appreciated God's way of presenting that to me through this broken window theory. I hope it inspired and encouraged you a little bit, parents out there, and I hope today's message, again, from Pastor Ben and his wife Amy, will also speak into your lives as parents. Well, as always, let's get our hearts ready, let's get our feet thumping and our hands clapping, and let's spend some time worshiping together, shall we?
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I imagine that we all need a little more God in our lives. I know for sure that I need Him. So let us find Him together today in the seeking through praise and worship. Oh, how I need you. 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 Lord, I find you in the seeking. Lord, I find you in the doubt. And to know you is to love you, and to know so little else. I need you. Oh, how I need you. Oh, how I need you. Oh, how I need you. Lord, I find you in the morning. Lord, I seek you every day. Let my life be for your glory, woven in your threads of grace. I need you. Oh, how I need you. Oh, how I need you. Oh, how I need you. Light, glorious light, I will go where you shine. Break the dawn, crack the skies, make the way bright before me. In your light, I will find all I need is you. Yeah. Light, glorious light, I will go where you shine. Break the dawn, crack the skies, make the way bright before me. In your light, I will find all I need is you. Oh, how I need 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 you. Colossians 3 says to let the message about Christ in all its richness fill your lives. Teach and counsel each other with all the wisdom He gives. Sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs to God with thankful hearts. And whatever you do or say, do it as a representative of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to Him through God the Father. Sing wherever I go, all my life, all I know. God's been good, good to my soul. Mountain high, valley low, I'm gonna sing wherever I go. Said all my life, all I know, God's been good, good to my soul. Mountain high, valley low, I'm gonna sing wherever I go. God is for me, He's not against me. I will hold to the plans He has for me. When I'm broken, He will fix me. I will call on the name of the Lord. All my life, all I know, God's been good, good to my soul. Mountain high, valley low, I'm gonna sing wherever I go. He's my heart song in my sorrow. He's my hope and my strength for tomorrow. When the storms rise all around me, I will call on the name of the Lord. Here we go. All my life, all I know, God's been good, good to my soul. Mountain high, valley low, I'm gonna sing wherever I go. Said all my life, all I know, God's been good, good to my soul. Mountain high, valley low, I'm gonna sing wherever I go. I got joy, joy, joy deep in my soul. I will sing, sing, sing wherever I go. 1, 2, 3, all my life, all I know, God's been good, good to my soul. Mountain high, valley low, I'm gonna sing wherever I go. Said all my life, all I know, God's been good, good to my soul. Mountain high, valley low, I'm gonna sing wherever I go.
Hey, well, thanks so much, worship team. And before we head into our moment of offering, let me remind you of a couple exciting things happening at McLean Church. We're talking about being parents, right? Well, listen, parents, if you would love to have your child or children dedicated at our church, this is the last opportunity for you to sign up. It'll be happening the weekend of November 5th and 6th. If you want to have your child brought before the church and celebrate them coming to know and love Jesus around all of us, we would love to cheer them on and make them a part of our child dedication. Head to our website at mcleanchurch.org to learn more about how to do that, and make sure you sign up this weekend. Hey, before we continue, I also want to remind you that as we head into the holidays, for some of us, it's a difficult time. You're dreading this time of year because you miss somebody who's not with you this holiday season. So that's why we're once again having our Surviving the Holidays meeting. This takes place on November 1st from 6:30 to 8:30, or on Saturday, November 5th from 10 to noon. There's more information on our Grief Share page on our website. I would encourage you now to start thinking ahead for this. If you're interested, visit mcleanchurch.org and check out the Grief Share page. Sign up now and be a part of this very special opportunity that we provide for folks who are dealing with grief during the holiday season. Hey, and one last thing, some exciting projects we're working on for our senior citizens. Take a look at this video.
Hey McLean Church, Rick here with a Be the Good moment, focusing on our initiative to serve underserved populations. Did you know that the Greater Erie Community Action Committee operates 9 senior citizen centers throughout the county? However, there is not one in Edinboro and no plans to have one. So we as a church would like to step into that space a little bit. For the next 3 weekends in the lobby, we have information from GCAC on the different programs they offer for the aging population. So if that is of interest to you, or perhaps you're dealing with aging parents, you may want to pick up some of those brochures. Then on Sunday, November the 13th at 10 a.m., we will have two people from GCAC here to go over those programs in more detail and answer any questions you have. Secondly, on Tuesday, November 15th at 10 a.m. and every Tuesday thereafter, we are going to open our doors to the senior citizen population for an opportunity to come have a cup of coffee, play cards, or just engage in a time of socialization. If you would like to help us with that by being a host on Tuesday mornings, or perhaps you could provide transportation to those in need, reach out to us at the church. So let's get out there and be the good.
Well, as we come together to give our tithes and our offerings, let me read from God's Word as we prepare our hearts for the rest of our service and also prepare our hearts for this very special part in our service where we are just so grateful for our church's generosity to breathe life into our mission. God's Word says this in 1 Corinthians 12, verses 4 through 6. I'm reading from the New King James Version. I love this verse. It says, "There are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit. There are differences of ministries, but the same Lord. And there are diversities of activities, but it is the same God who works all in all." That verse just speaks so much to the different things we've got going on in our church, the different ways in which you can be a part of all of that financially. We're grateful for all that you do because God is involved in all of it. Thank you for your offering and your generosity today.
Well, welcome to everyone who's joining us today. We are in the fourth week of our parenting series, and we're recording this for the week of October 30th, 2022 in northwestern Pennsylvania. And just a quick word about where we're headed in the weeks ahead. Next week, we'll take a break from our parenting series, and we're going to talk about energizing our spirituality in a message that I'm really excited to bring as we fall back to church next weekend. Hope you'll join us for that, and then we'll wrap up this parenting series with two very strong messages, one on the importance of our words and the other on the reality that love has limits. But today we're going to continue to hear from some real parents who have raised some real kids. And as we talked the first week with Pastor Mike, who raised 3 girls, we saw last week and heard from Pastor Lenora, who'd raised 3 boys. This weekend, we're going to hear from Pastor Ben and his wife Amy, who have raised 4 children, 3 girls and 1 boy. You have Anna, who's your oldest. She is a teacher in Virginia. Megan, who's a manager for Wegmans right here in our area. Sam, who is a sophomore at Grove City. And Emma, who is a senior at Fairview High School. And like we've said about Mike's kids and Lenora's kids, Ben and Amy's kids, they're great people. they're going someplace in the world. Ben and Amy have obviously done something right in raising them, and we're really excited to hear from both of you a little bit about what that has been and your experience of raising 4 great kids. So share with us what's on your mind today.
Thank you.
We really appreciate that. Well, hey everyone, we are excited to be with you today and to share our journey of parenting as Pastor Brian opened up for us. And again, I'm glad to have my wife with us today. Amy, thanks for joining us.
I'm glad to be here, and I'm really excited to share this message because it fits perfectly with where we are in our season of life. In June, our youngest will graduate from high school and head out to college in the fall, and we will have an empty nest. And you know, I was talking to my sister about that a number of weeks ago, and she asked almost cautiously, well, what are you going to do when everyone's gone? And without missing a beat, I said, have fun.
That's right.
So she was a little shocked with my answer. And one thing that we've done along the way is we've chosen to celebrate where we are in life with our family.
Yeah, I can understand why your sister may have responded that way and maybe had pause in her reaction. And I think many families would have the same pause. There's this natural lament that happens in the rhythm of life. There's this desire to want to live in the moments forever. I mean, when things are going great, you want to live right there. I mean, think back to when you were a kid, a teen, or a young adult. Many of us couldn't wait to leave home and get out of there, wherever there was, and get on to our own thing. But for many of our parents, they wanted to hold on to those moments. But in reality, who wanted mom and dad tagging along the way? Amy and I decided a long time ago to celebrate where we are in life as parents and to look forward to what's ahead. What adventures does the next season of life bring? What are the new possibilities? And we decided to choose to celebrate the new things with our kids. And along the way, there were a few scripture verses and passages that have been a guide for us in our parenting. We want to share those scripture passages with you today, and then in a few moments, we'll share some tips that we've learned in our parenting. But the first scripture passage that really spoke to me and to us as a family is this passage from 1 Samuel in the Old Testament. It's a story of Hannah and her husband. Hannah was unable to have a child. She's advancing in age, and Hannah found herself at the temple one day, and it was that day that she decided that she would pour out her heart to God and ask Him for a child. And against all odds, God granted her request, and she gave birth to a son and named him Samuel. Now, as the story goes, a few years later, she did something unimaginable. She returned to the temple and entrusted her son to the service of God, to live and to learn and to grow under the tutelage of the priest. She actually gave her son back to God to be used in life as God desired. In our culture, it's hard to understand the deep nuances of this story, but maybe in a crude sense, it's something like sending your child to a religious boarding school. But here's Hannah, giving her child over to God. After thinking she'd never have a child, after pouring her heart out in prayer year after year after year, and actually finally having this child, a few years later, she returns him to God for His purpose and desire.
And one thing we really believe as parents is that children are a gift to us from God. God has entrusted to us a child and the life of this child. And as parents who are followers of Jesus, we believe that it's our responsibility to bring up our children in the faith. We believe that's our greatest responsibility. We may not send them to a religious boarding school, but we can make a definitive decision in our heart that our children are a gift from God entrusted to us. And we can make a decision in our home to bring them before God in prayer, in worship at the local church, in a home that teaches the Bible and the love of God so that they can grow in knowledge and faith.
You know, another scripture that we have lived by and really has implicitly been a foundation for us and allows us to help our children look forward to the next seasons of their life as they grow and they mature. It comes from Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. Paul says this, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." Paul wrote in Ephesians that God created each and every one of us for good works. And as parents, grandparents, super fun aunts and uncles, and important role models in the lives of children, we are helping them discover who they are and to step into those good works God has for them. Remember, Paul wrote that God has created them, one, to do good works. Two, there's two things in play there that we as parents can really help our children with. Help them discover, one, who God created them to be, then discover what good works they can be involved in. And as we help them discover who God created them to be, then really they can't go wrong in what they choose to do and pursue.
Right. And that guidance we provide never ends, but it does change. You know, at different stages of life, we are required as parents to provide a different amount of direction and guidance. I remember when our youngest, Emma, was ready for kindergarten, the last one, and we were reminiscing of how the older three managed their first day. Well, it's our youngest turn, and the day finally arrives. We lived 2 blocks from the school at that time, and we were all going to walk together that morning. And we had it all planned out. We were walking and getting excited about the day, and as we got closer to the school, she started to pull away, and she walked a little faster. And when we got close, we said, "Do you want us to walk in with you?" And she said, "Nope, I'm good." I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure you don't want us to walk in with you? This was number 4.
Because we had walked in with all the other ones.
Yes, and that was the way we did it.
That's the way you do it.
That's the way you do it. And she said, "Nope, I'm good," and off she went. I think part of it, I remember talking to you like, it's the last one. But can I walk her in? So Ben reassured me that was a good thing. Yeah, that was a good thing. And we were left on the sidewalk a little stunned, a little sad, and a little excited for her. And just this mix of emotions because it was both. It was so different from her siblings' experience, but also we were so proud that she had the courage to just go do it by herself. And we should be helping our kids discover how God created them and helping them and allowing them to flourish in that. And, you know, that doesn't mean that they have to have it all figured out in 8th grade. We don't have to have it all figured out in 8th grade. We had one of the girls come home in 8th grade and said, "School says I have to have it figured out. I have to have it all figured out.
Do all these assessments and take this test.
And I got to figure it out."
Yep.
You got time. It was all right, but that's that's that. So it means that we talk through the years with our kids.
Yeah, and a third verse that we hold on to really comes from Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. And it says this, it says, "Train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it." Now, let's be clear. In the poetic style of the Old Testament, this isn't a promise, it's a principle that we live by. Our hope is that as we lay a foundation of faith and direct their steps, our children's steps in faith, to discover who God created them to be, then as they live their lives, they will be faithful in following Jesus. It's a principle, it's not a promise, but it's something that we hold on to. It really drives home for us the responsibility of parents. And we need to be engaged in our children's lives and directions. Train up is active guidance in our children's lives. Train up sets boundaries. Train up sets responsibilities. Train up sets discipline, and it follows through with discipline. We as parents, as families who've been granted the responsibility, and we realize today that many children aren't being raised by biological parents. They may be being raised by grandparents, really fun aunts and uncles, or maybe they've been adopted into a new family, or maybe they've been entrusted into a foster care system with different people. But we still have, where we have responsibility over the children, we must exercise that, train them up with that Proverbs 22 mentality, and so they can discover who Jesus really is. I mean, our homes need to be the primary source of faith training. I want to say that again. Our homes need to be the primary source of faith training. When you come to church, the church empowers you as parents. The church empowers us as families to live it out at home, because the home is where the faith training really happens. And in reality, it will be, and in reality, it already is the place of faith training, whether we recognize that or not.
They're watching us.
They are. They're watching our every move, and how we live as followers of Jesus is the greatest life lesson and Bible story they will ever see. So the question is, what faith are we teaching at home, and how healthy is it? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but I mean it in a very realistic way, that our homes are the primary place where our children learn the faith of Jesus. And so the proverb that we just read, 22:6, train up a child in the way they should go. It's not just bring them to church. That's an important part, but it's live it out at home. So with that in mind, let us share with you 4 principles that we try to parent by, which helps us as we move from one stage to another. Pastor Brian mentioned our children at the beginning, the rundown of who they are, where they're at. We have one in Virginia, we have one in Erie, but he's going to be moving out of state next spring.
And she's living at home.
And she's living at
right
home.
now?
Yeah, she's living at home.
Okay.
College graduate living at home,
Right.
but getting ready to move
Launch
out of
out,
state. We have another college student in college, and then our youngest still at home. We are experiencing all the different stages right now, which is a little bit why we're kind of looking forward to the empty nest, right? And see what that's all about. So with that in mind, let us share with you a few principles, 4 principles that we thought of in regards to our children, along with the scripture verses that we shared with you just a moment ago.
Right. So the first principle is pray for them. When I remember when they were little, and I would pray that they would come to know God, and they would grow up in the faith and learn to rely on Him for their strength and guidance. Not me, but Him for strength and guidance. It's never too early to start praying for a spouse, for your kids. So I pray for a spouse for each of my kids, that they find someone that loves God and someone that's just right for them and what they need, to encourage them to stay in their relationship with Christ as well.
So we pray for strength and wisdom.
Yep.
We pray for their spouse. And I think the important thing that you just said there, going back and thinking about praying for their spouse, is what they need.
Yeah.
Not what we want.
No.
Not what we think we need in their spouse.
Or what we think they need.
Yeah.
But what they need.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing, that we have to get to that point as parents, as they grow and mature, that we're maturing with them and saying we want God's best for them,
Right.
not my best for them.
Right.
So strength and wisdom, their spouse, and what's the other one?
A heart for others and good friends. It has really helped us in that we were praying for good friends for our kids, and they have good friends, and they've had some very good friends that will be lifelong friends. Yep. So it's important to pray for that. And while this may seem obvious, it's always a good reminder that we keep our kids in our prayers and we be specific in those prayers. If a kid has trouble with math, pray for them, pray with them. Yeah. As you learn their math too, because at school sometimes it can be new for the parents too. So
that's a different message for a different day. Right. Pray. That's a good principle. Pray with them specifically about the thing that they're struggling with,
right.
which teaches them
right.
to be specific in their prayers.
Right.
All goes back to training the child up in the home in the way that they should go. Second principle that we would share with you is this. We learn from the past. We don't live in the past. We learn from the past, but we don't live in the past. Failure isn't fatal. Mistakes are not unsurmountable. Those are really principles and values that we try to build in our home, and they're values that we want to encourage you to live with too. Like, don't learn from the past, but don't live there. We need to create a culture that encourages learning from what we've been through, but in a way that propels them forward into the future, not in a way that tries to live in the past. So, for example, if in our past experiences we've had positive things happen, sometimes people will try to live there, right? You may know people like this, right? You go on a vacation, you go on a cruise, you go on an excursion, and I remember when we did this in the past, and I remember when our kids were young, and I remember when my parents did this, and it was so positive and so much fun. Let's recreate this moment. Let's recreate the moments. And there's nothing wrong with that, like when you're going to do a picture or a one-off here and there, but sometimes we can get caught in recreating all the moments instead of allowing moments to be created. We need to allow life to happen. Learn from the past, but live in the moment. And then the other thing is, like, sometimes we've had negative experiences in the past, and we have to learn from those as well. There is something to be learned from the negative experiences, but again, we don't want to live there. And when we move forward, we do so with the idea that we've learned from that negative and we want to turn it into a positive in our life. Because if we just live in the negative feelings or thoughts or experiences of the past, then what that ends up doing is it really does impact our self-esteem. It impacts our own determination. It impacts our ability to cope in the present because we're living in the negative of the past. We have to learn from it and then move on from it. I think we all know, I call him an Uncle Rico in our lives, right? If you're familiar with the movie Napoleon Dynamite, you know Uncle Rico. Uncle Rico is 40 plus years old, and he's living in the past as a high school football player. He was living in the current with only his past memories, trying to impress people with who he was and not who he is. We need to learn our lessons, but we need to keep moving forward.
The third principle is this: celebrate the present. As you live in today, celebrate the current moments as you prepare for the next chapter. So for us, it might be our daughter's senior year and some of the new jobs that the older girls are having. And For some of you younger parents, it might be bringing new siblings into your home right now, and how does that all work? But celebrating those moments, T-ball, kindergarten, or even just staying over at grandma's house for the first time. That's pretty exciting. Yeah. So celebrate the present, and when you are going through transitions, realize that each child needs released differently. We shared a little bit about our youngest in kindergarten. As we're looking at the college years, things have been different too. For one of our girls, we had to make it a whole weekend thing and had to get her moved in and everything because she chose to go farther away for school. And every kid is different. So there are different times that when you do have 4 kids, you realize how different they are, right? And as we got to know them, we realized that each of them had needed different things at different times. And it certainly hasn't been the same with each kid. And so you want to explore the future with your kids. And like I said earlier, they don't need to know in 8th grade what they're going to do for the rest of their life. It's an ongoing thing and an ongoing discovery even as they get older. They're still going to be changing and finding new things to discover. One of the things that we would say to the kids is, what makes you pound that table? What is your passion in life? And then we would talk about that. Let's see, we want to discover and their strengths, and we're going to be their biggest cheerleader. And that doesn't end. I was reminded by a friend of mine that's a little bit farther into the empty nest stage, and she said, you never stop being the cheerleader for your kids as they grow.
Yeah. Finally, the last principle we would share is this. Create a space and an environment where they know they can always come home. Luke chapter 15 tells the story of the prodigal son. Many of us know that story, but for me, the reaction of the father is the key to the story. No matter the circumstance, or the failure, or the challenge, the father was waiting for the son to come home. And the son was welcomed. I was listening to a podcast this week featuring Tim Elmore from growleaders.com, who was discussing the different generations we see in culture today. The boomer generation, the Gen X, the Gen Z, the millennials. And he mentioned that at the turn of the century, as Gen Z was being born, he said that the average teenager in North America experiences the same level of anxiety as a psychiatric patient did in the 1950s. Think about that. Children who are being born in the early 2000s, who are now teenagers, are experiencing the same level of anxiety as psychiatric patients did in the 1950s. Our millennial and Gen Z children are experiencing anxiety, the likes of which we can't really even understand. And more than ever, they need to know that home is a safe place to land and return to. Now, there's a caution here. Depending on the situation, the caution is not to make home so comfortable that they stay forever. Every situation is different, and we understand that. But if and when they come home, it is good to have boundaries and parameters. It's okay to say, you are welcome home. We love having you here. We want this to be a safe place for you. But as you're home, do the dishes.
Right.
As you're home, take out the garbage. Right? There's nothing wrong with setting boundaries and parameters even when the kids come home. It's good to have maybe negotiated timelines. Hey, you are more than welcome to come home. But again, depending on the situation, depending on the circumstance, we may need to put a timeline on this. Like, you're good and we're all good about this, but maybe after 6 weeks we start looking for an apartment with you. or not with you, but we help you look. I'm not moving in with you, right? We help you, like maybe after 6 weeks, we start exploring other ideas or other options. And it's good for us to have expectations discussed along with consequences. Again, we want you to come home. We want this to be a safe place. But the coming home means laundry increases, dishes increase, meals increase, food bills go up, right? We have to live in the reality. Just because it's a safe place, home is a safe place to land, doesn't mean that there are no responsibilities or consequences if those responsibilities are met. We always want our kids to know that they can always come home. Calling home because of something that's going on in their life, a serious challenge or even a non-serious challenge, but things that are really important to them, they need to know they can always call. Like there should be no hesitation in thinking, can I call home? Absolutely, they can call home.
Right, and we can be that sounding board for them, or we try to be that sounding board for them that, if they have, they just want to run something past us.
Right.
They should feel free to call.
Yeah, everything from being a sounding board to I need to come home because.
Right.
No matter how that sentence ends, I need to come home because. No matter how that sentence ends, we want to build a home that says absolutely.
Yeah, we'll come get you.
We'll come get you. Now again,
Right.
there's parameters around that depending on the situation, but you should always know you can come home. Those are some of the principles that we live by that have been helpful to us. Amy, any final thoughts?
Just that, your family's going to go through a lot of changes through the years, and some of them will be very challenging, but some of them will be very rewarding. So let's learn to celebrate the big and small moments as we're parenting our children, and remember that it can be fun.
That's right. Now look, here's the deal. We know we're not perfect, all right? Trust me, there's a lot of work to do on this guy, right? And there's so much more that we could say, that we could do. But we hope that with God's word and with these few tips that we've shared from our life and from our experience, we hope that you'll be excited about the next season of parenting.
My lighthouse. feeling lost, stuck out at sea. The waves grow high, the winds blow strong. In your heart believe, there's a light that's shining, it's never going out. So don't give up now, don't lose hope, the future's looking bright. Fire before us, you're the brightest. You lead us through the storm. Fire before us, you're the brightest. You lead us through the storm. Hey! Fire before us, you're the brightest. You lead us through the storm. Fire before us, you're the brightest. You lead us through the storm. My lighthouse, shining in the darkness, I will follow you. Oh, my lighthouse, I will trust the promise. You will carry me safe to shore, safe to shore, safe to shore, safe to la 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 lighthouse, la 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 lighthouse, la 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 lighthouse, through the snow, la 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 lighthouse.
Hey, well, that's going to wrap things up for today. What a great service. Parents, be encouraged. Keep fighting the good fight. Trust me, I'm in it with you. I know whether you're a grandparent or a new parent, this is a process that God has got to be a part of, and I'm grateful for our pastor's experience and all the people in our church that have kids that have spoken life into my life as a parent. I'm grateful for each and every one of you, and I'm grateful that our church is walking us through this series and teaching us a little bit about parenting and how much we truly do rely on God to be the best versions of parents that we can be. Well, thanks for being with us today. As always, please stay connected with us throughout the week. We have so much going on. I don't have time to tell you about everything, so I'm going to encourage you to go to our website, mcleanchurch.org. Check out everything happening, and as always, stay connected with us on social media to see everything going on in our church and a lot of ways in which you can get involved. Most importantly, make church a priority for your family. Be here again with us next week, whether in person or online. We are so grateful to have a community here at McLean Church, and I look forward to spending time with you again next week.